Hello class, on another video on repetition structure. In this video we're looking at nested loops and we'll see how we use them in our program. In this example we're looking at a simple nested for loops. We have two for loops. The first for loop has two iterations, 0 iteration and the 1th iteration. And the inner loop, the one with the j target variable here, has 3 iterations. The 0 iteration, 1 and 2. Then print I and j, so this will print for us an order pair of I and j. And this statement is within the inner loop. So the question is, how many times will I be executing this statement? Let's see. We start by assigning the value 0 to I, and that will start the next statement, which is a for loop. We'll assign 0 again to j, and we'll execute the print. We will keep printing until we run out of iterations here. We said we have 3 iterations. So on the first iteration here, we're printing 3 times. Then we come to the second iteration and we print 3 more times. That gives me a total of 6. And take this as a rule. The number of time that you execute the inner or the body of the inner loop will be the number of iterations of the first loop times the number of iterations of the nested loop. So 2 times 3 is 6, and that's how many times we're printing. But we're not printing them continuously, because if you notice here, it's not only the for loop that we're doing within the first loop. We're doing the inner for loop, and then after we're done with the inner for loop, we will print inner and come back to the outer for loop to check if there are more items in the sequence I can get. Since we only did 1 iteration, we go back and get the second number in the sequence, assign it to an I, and that will allow me to print 3 more times and also print inner 1 more time. If I come back here, I'm done with all numbers in the range function. So this will take me to the outside, and I will print outer 1 time only. So let's follow the execution of this program. You start with the outer for loop, you assign 0 to I, and you come to the inner for loop. That's the whole thing here is the body of the outer for loop. So you print I and j, and then you keep going with the inner for loop until you finish it. You finish the outer first iteration for the outer for loop, and then you go back for another iteration. So when you execute it with the 0, that's what you get. You get a 0 for I, 0 with 0, 0 with 1, 0 with 2. You print inner. This is the execution of the first iteration of the outer for loop. When I is 1, that's what we're gonna get. This is the second iteration. And then the outer loop is running out of values in the sequence. It will exit, and the last thing we'll see on the screen is the word outer, and that's the output of it. So if you go ahead guys and write the program here, play around with it, change the indentation and see what happens. If you change the indentation of this print statement, you will notice that the inner is not printed at the end of the inner loop anymore. It will be printed every time the inner loop, so it becomes part of the body of the inner loop, and will print every time we finish or we do an iteration.